Welcome back to the Coruscant Knights podcast. Thanks for joining us. My name is Cooper, and joining me, as always, is my co-host Jack. And, and on today's podcast, we're discussing the Acolyte episode 6, just released, and this is the first time we're discussing it, the first time we're chatting about it.
Yes, yes,
So we don't
yes.
know what we think about it, so it'll be one of those classic Coruscant Knights discussions. Just before we begin, if you aren't already following, please do at Coruscant Knights on Instagram and TikTok. We'll be doing some giveaways and stuff soon. We mentioned last week. The only way you can be involved in that is if you are following us. And also a special thanks to our patrons, Ben, Keita, Caleb, Sebi, and John. We appreciate you all. Today, after the podcast, we are uploading our first after show. And so if you want to hear more about what we thought of the podcast and of the episode in a bit of a more informal manner, then this is the way to go. Go follow us on Patreon. It's free and you get a bunch of different benefits as well. And yeah, the after show, which is exclusive to Patreon.
Mm.
Okay. I'm very curious to see what you think because of your background.
Um, yeah, look, it's god awful. It is so bad, and I, I feel like a broken record at this point. How am I supposed to keep coming in here aside from purely last week? And there's going to be people who are going to say he's so negative, he's so negative. But oh, what did I just watch? Absolutely nothing happened for the third last episode of the whole season. It literally ended so abruptly again. And me and the person I was watching it with was just like, they've done it again. What actually happened in this show, in this episode? It was weird dialogue conversations, especially with old mate here, like just some unusual, like weird tension between them, like Raylo and stuff. Like I don't get what they're trying to make this show feel like. And that's what I'm struggling with. The vibe of this show feels so whack. It like last week's episode was so serious and so like so shocking. And then this episode is just like, oh yeah, I just had to kill them kind of thing. And I just had to do that. And now we're just gonna be talking and we're gonna be on this random island that says unknown planet, which is clearly a replica of the Last Jedi. What's it called again?
Up
Up
to,
to.
up to.
Yep. It's just what are they thinking when they releasing like when they made these episodes? Last week's episode was such a banger, and then this episode was just I don't even know. It wasn't like awfully bad like I think episode 3 and 4 was, but coming after episode 5, this is utter trash in comparison. Like what do you mean? What are you feeling? Like I want to know how you're feeling after this because I felt like I've just watched absolutely nothing, like
Well,
nothing at all.
to be honest, what did we really expect? Like after last week's episode, it was kind of like we weren't gonna get the kind of fancy action, like big stakes, great choreography. We
Yeah,
weren't
of
gonna get that.
course,
That was the trailer shot, that was the trailer moment, and now we're past that.
of course, but still,
Yeah, no, I know, but I'm just saying that for people who were expecting maybe a bit more,
oh yeah,
like
nah, nah.
like what we got in episode 5, no, that was what it was leading up to, and now it's kind of the we're back into that mystery aspect of like we're
Mm.
following what happened on Brandok and why is Sol now suddenly been acting
Yeah.
weird and what's up with Osha now becoming a Sith or something, whatever. Um, I will tell you what I think because it's a little bit different to what you think. But I just want to say quickly, I'm pretty certain that that was Arc 2
Yeah, it
because
has
the
to be
creatures, the mini creatures looked very similar to the
Rocky.
creatures that were
Yeah.
on the island in The Last Jedi. So I'm
Hmm.
I'm pretty sure it's Arc 2, but it said unknown planet. I don't know if they did that just so they wouldn't cause controversy. Like,
Yeah.
oh, why is the Sith on the planet that had the first Jedi Temple or whatever it was?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know, but overall, I actually didn't hate this episode. I quite enjoyed it, and I know I've been seeing comments more and more recently on other people's
Mhm.
videos saying if people say they love this show, they're lying. They're not being truthful. I'm being genuinely honest, and we had this discussion last week. I like The Acolyte for what it is. I don't think it's the best written show. I don't think it's the most intriguing, but there's something about it. I just like the idea that we're in the time of the High Republic and seeing how this whole part of the galaxy looks. Not even that the story's bland or anything. Just being
It
able to
is.
see how the galaxy operates. That's what's interesting to me. And the story is hit or miss sometimes. This one, I thought it was a bit of a hit.
It is so boring. It is.
It
You
is
can
okay.
say you said you like the idea of this time period. I love the idea of this time period. However, this is utter garbage. It is not anything. It's not showing any real kind of other planets or even aspects of this time period in the galaxy. For all we know, it could just be a part in the prequels. Literally, we don't get anything showing that is in a High Republic era.
Okay, so I beg to differ because I think today's episode with Vanestra and a lot of her dialogue
Ugh.
saying that like, oh, and Sol as well saying it's time I face the High Council, and Vanestra kind of making comments that, like, well, there's not an implication that she's going to tell the High Council. It's like I like that sort of trajectory going downwards now where it's like the Jedi, they can't even admit they're at fault. They've been so like arrogant and cocky this whole time that they're flawless. And now that they're starting to show their flaws, it's like, oh no, we can't do that. We got
Well, I
we
mean,
got powerful allies. We can't do that.
it would be cool if we actually saw them being cocky and arrogant, though. We barely even saw that. But what
I think Yord
name?
was pretty cocky and arrogant.
No, no, he really wasn't. He was just going by the book and scripts. He only was knighted like what's it called, a couple years or whatever they called it ago. Like he wasn't recent. You know what I mean? Like I've all the masters we've gotten so far, aside from the clueless Kiadi Mundi who is uselessly there, literally haven't really been any kind of arrogant whatsoever. Vanestra is just hiding truth, and Soul is just hiding truth. But they both have the right intentions in mind. They're not really being like, oh, there's no one in this galaxy that can stop us kind of thing. We are the hand of everything. Like they're not that cocky.
Yeah, no,
And
well, okay, but it's more arrogance and it's like
mm,
failure to admit when something's not going right. And
true, but we've got that better in the prequels when they literally had the Sith in their own kind of
I
politics.
understand that, but this and it's the whole point of the novels as well. It's like to show the slow rise of the Sith and the slow decline of the Jedi. So
Oh,
I just
100%
I
agree.
don't understand
It's just
why
not doing it
some
right.
people can't get that because that's
No,
what
no.
this show is pitched as.
Yeah, yeah. You can say it's pitched as, and you can say that it's meant to be like that, but it's in reality, it's not like that, and that is why I'm annoyed because people just you're saying something that is not actually happening. Everything you're saying would make this show sound like it's actually good, but you're not actually saying what we're seeing. We're not getting really any of that. They're giving us a little like a little teeny water drop of every little part that you've just said. We've barely gotten anything that's given us a full fledged kind of idea that you're going into.
I don't think it's this water trickle
It's
analogy that
water
you're
trickling
using.
everything. The
I
story is
think
being dragged out already between 6 episodes. Next week's episode, we're going to get the flashback one, finally going to reveal something, and it's going to conclude in the most anticlimactic way and the most basic, horribly written dialogue where Osha and May are going to have another talk about all their life morals, and then it's going to link back to the witches again. It's dragging on such a boring plot that has no relevance to this overall time in the galaxy, honestly. It would have been more interesting if they just didn't have a Sith in this show and just go with a different kind of what's it called, rising power like we've seen in the Light of the Jedi and stuff. I don't understand why this show is trying to be a mixture of multiple things whilst not being its own like consolidated identity. It doesn't have an identity. This show is bland and it's horrible.
okay, I agree with that point. It lacks an identity. I think it's trying to be too many different things. It's getting lost in between trying to be a mystery thriller and also a political thriller and
Mm.
also um, I said political thriller. I don't know, just like its own sort of story and its time period piece. So I think it doesn't have an identity. I agree with you on that point, but I do think that it's showing enough of the ideas that this is a group of Jedi that are, you know, like not up themselves, but they are the power, they can't be challenged, and now that they are challenged, it's like they're not they're not ready for it. I can't describe that. And I know we see this differently, and I know you really don't like this show, and I've
I agree that's what they're trying to
gone on
show. I
positively.
agree that's what they're trying. That's their intention. I 100% agree. I can see where they're going with it. However, we barely got any scenes or any sort of build up to how powerful these Jedi are. He's slain one no, wait. He didn't even kill any masters. They were all knights and a Padawan.
But
Like, how is
okay,
that any sort of power or show of powerness? Like powerfulness.
okay, so I feel like and this is something I forgot to mention last week. I feel like there's a difference between physical power and like power in numbers. Like the Jedi were 10,000, if not more, strong at this time. The most Jedi there's ever been at one time period.
Yeah,
And
but
that's
number
where
doesn't
it's like,
mean.
no, I know it doesn't mean that, but I just think that because we know what's going to happen on Brendok. They killed all of the witches
Yeah,
because they
which
were
is.
using the
I'm
Force against
saying.
to the Jedi. So
Yeah,
they're they're closing off other users from using the Force differently, and
of
that's
course.
what I mean. It's like I hate to use this analogy, but it really is similar. It's like religion. It's like
Mm.
Christianity is the biggest religion in the world because
Well, yeah,
of numbers.
they're trying to force their opinions on, like they're trying to force their only one way of,
Yeah,
practice and stuff. It's not like we. I don't. I'll speak for the other side of the fan base. It's not like we don't get it. It's more just it's one that you wouldn't think needs to be demonstrated in like a visual format like this. It's such a minor, small little thing which has already been explored through this Star Wars medium, and it's not even doing it in its own different way. Like it's not like the plot itself is confusing or it
no,
doesn't have a plot. It does have a plot. It's just it's no good. It's the most basic, like easily readable plot ever. We all said that the Ahsoka season one plot go this way, and it literally did. It is a basic plot too. Like they just not are coming up with something that is like you can go with a murder mystery thing, which will be amazing to like. There's no really murder mystery within this because one, we already know what the Jedi have basically done, unless they go like full 180 and give us some whole other thing that we don't know about. Fair play if they do. I don't think it's going to go that way. We already know who this Sith is, who basically is now a Sith. He's practically admitted it almost at this point. But we still really have no backstory to him aside from he is definitely probably the Padawan or was trained by Venestra because of his like whip marks on his back. So it's probably her, trying to. It definitely would have been Venestra being the master of him back in the when he was with the Jedi because he said that
Ah.
yeah he obviously knows the Jedi stuff. Like it's kind of pretty obviously going that way, and how she reacted the when they went to Kofa and then the guy was like, oh, what could have done this? Soul couldn't have kind of done this. What other power? And then she like looked real scared, and I can't remember what did she say again?
Was well, he was basically saying, I forgot his name. Was it Mog? Mog? Yeah,
Some weird.
Mog. Yeah. He was like, lightsaber marks. Who else could have done this other than Soul? Kind of like that.
Mm,
Like
mm,
Soul was the only one powerful enough to do this. And then Vanessa's like, or someone trying to tip the scales,
tip the
which
scales, yeah. And it's definitely like she knows who this is, and that's another little secret thing. It's like all these little secret things that they're trying to make hidden, even with the reveal of Camille being the master Sith, it's just so obvious.
yeah,
Like it's not keeping me interested even in the story. Like even if the dialogue is utter garbage, which I think it is still, at least keep me on my edge of my toe or like, edge of the seat, or like keep me on my feet kind of thing. Or on my toes. I got the knowledge just completely mixed around there. But like it's just everything's been revealed basically already or is so easily predictable, meaning that this show in itself is not very good, even not being a Star Wars show. It's just not a very good show. Like I just think that it's and the short run times, the very there's no real subplots to this show where a lot of shows always have kind of other subplots, which some people might think is not relevant. However, I think this show would probably benefit from a subplot because the main plot is so lacking that it would be interesting to get like more backstory even with Camilla and follow him and then follow the Jedi, kind of like two separate ones that come together in the end.
yep,
Like I think there's so many different ways they could have made this show a lot more engaging and exciting and also keeping you guessing what's going to happen next week. I feel like every single show that we've gotten from Disney Star Wars so far, aside from like Andor, has basically been kind of the most predictable things ever. And I think that's where I'm getting annoyed because it's like, why not release them all at once then so we can binge them in a format which might give us more enjoyment because on their own weekly is not enough to keep you wanting to watch it. Because honestly, coming into this one, I was like, look, I know it's probably going to be a slower dialogue, heavy episode. And I was already worried for that because the dialogue in this show has been pretty bad already. And in this one, it wasn't like there wasn't any real bad acting, I would say, but just weird scenes. Like even the scene with Basil and May, like in the ship where Basil was trying to pull kung fu. Like I was like, what am I? What am I watching? Like a SNL bloody comedy sketch on Star Wars? Like what is this? Like, and even him taking a bath in the water, and it's like, but he knows she's there. So I'm like, why are you doing this weird thing anyway? And then I don't know. It's just everything. And even the end, I'm like, she's put on the helmet. I do like the concept that it's what the younglings use to kind of like block out all the other thoughts and stuff. Obviously, that means the way that you could see from the perspective of the helmet was cool, but it also looked like you couldn't see much, which I thought would be the case on the outside, meaning that obviously maybe he's got strong force abilities because he might have had to predict where things would be or moving because he can't obviously see like anything at all. I'm like, that's just like no one can see through that. I don't care who you are. But like even that, I'm like, why was that being such a lingering, like, big shock moment? I'm like, it's just a helmet. It's not going to make her evil or anything. Like, it's just her collecting her thoughts. She's probably going to feel more spiritual after it or something. But it's like, bruh, like, so lame.
I,
Oh,
I think you and I have read this helmet situation very differently.
how did you read
So
the helmet situation?
in my Instagram review, which will post, actually should
Mm,
probably already be posted by the time this comes out, I
mm.
mentioned that I feel like the helmet now is a symbol of the dark side, and her putting it
Ugh.
on is her beginning to embrace that darkness. In
Oh
my
my
opinion,
gosh, that is
why is
so
that bad?
cringe.
Why is that bad? Why is
No,
it
no,
cringe?
not
Explain it to me. I want to hear because I
you're
feel
saying
like
a
I'm
helmet.
saying stuff and I'm not like getting heard.
No, no. It's just no. I'm saying like if that's their way of saying that she's embracing the dark side by putting on a bloody helmet, I think that's the most like bloody weirdest scenario. Like trying to build something out of nothing. Like you can't tell me that a helmet represents the dark side. It's just a physical like thing. Kylo Ren wasn't made by the helmet. Darth Vader wasn't made
I
by the
know,
helmet.
but when you think of Sith,
Metaphorically, yeah.
well, not most of the time, but a lot of Sith wear helmets, and I don't know if it's to disguise their identity or give them focus like this one does, but I feel like, and this is just my opinion, that this is a transition for Osha. That putting it on is now her going, okay, I've seen that something's not right with the Jedi. This guy is being kind to me. I'm not gonna go as far as May, but I'm gonna, give it a shot. Let's see how it is. And that's why I really like this last shot. And I really like the idea, like what you were saying, that the helmet blocks out all your other senses and that is like the ones that the Jedi younglings used. I really liked that idea. And it for me, it really made what Kamir do on Ko-Fire against the Jedi a lot more impressive because he was doing it okay, he was basically doing it without, being able to see anything. He was having to rely on the
Mm,
Force to
mm,
block lightsabers and stab Jedi.
yeah.
So I don't know. I feel like I might be wrong. I might be wrong, but that's how I read it at least. So
Like, I mean, reading it like that is all good and well, but once again, I think you can't just turn a character who's been very objectively good in this show to one instance where a villain is being kind to her for her to be like, I'm gonna think about going to the dark side.
but
Like,
it's
it's like May going back to good in the other one. It's like it didn't make sense. Like, or changing her allegiance halfway through. Like, it just like with these two characters, things are just changing over for the sake of it for plot rather than for actual making sense for logic. You know what I
it
mean?
is. I know Osha's been good, well, yes, she has been good, perceived as good for most of the series. But I feel like there's a lot in common with Camille because they both left the order. I mean, Camille
Yeah,
probably left because he was getting abused, and Osha obviously has left
yeah,
for because what did she say in the episode? She failed. So I'm sure we'll get
failed.
an
Yeah.
answer to that. But I feel like there's a understanding there, and them discuss. I really liked the idea that they were discussing, not embracing the dark side, but just what the dark side was and how it's like the below the consciousness, like it's the emotions below the consciousness of anger and fear and loss. I really like that. And this is what the show to me needed to do from the get-go because it was pitched as exploring the Rise of the Sith and the dark side of the Force. And obviously, the title is the Acolyte, a disciple of evil. So that's what it was pitched. This was the first episode in the entire show where I felt like we got the overlapping storylines between the dark side and the characters that are involved with that and the Jedi. And obviously the mystery kind of the mystery was more focused on the Jedi in this one, but this is what I feel like the story needed to be from the get-go because we had May as the main antagonist for the first four episodes. We knew that the Master was there, but we didn't get him until episode 4/5. So
Mm,
just now that we didn't obviously get enough of that storyline because you can't focus it through just May by herself. So
mm,
now we're finally getting it. I liked seeing that. Again, I agree with you. It wasn't the best written and it was boring at times. That I will say
yeah.
that. It was sometimes very boring. A lot of the stuff on the ship with Soul and May was oh
Mm,
and the Basil stuff as well. I didn't really like that. But yeah, I just think that we're finally getting that, and hopefully next week. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with Osha and Camille, in all honesty. I assume Osha's going to die, maybe,
mm,
because
I don't
she's
know.
now seen him without the helmet,
Look, yeah,
unless
I
she
don't know.
can, unless he can convince her to embrace the darkness, or
I, yeah, look, when after like talking about all this is getting me like more annoyed about what's been happening because on it, like, why do I not care about what happens to Osha May, Soul, all these characters right now? Like the only one I kind of care about surviving is Kamiya because I like villains in most projects, right? But he literally can't survive, so that's fair enough. He has to die. Otherwise, it's going to ruin what happened in between the smaller periods between Phantom Menace and stuff and Palpatine and all that.
yeah,
But more just like I don't care about these characters whatsoever. I literally when like it was cool seeing the Jedi die last week just because to see actually stuff happening. I cared. I could not care less about Yord. I was more happy that he was in the ground, to be honest. Like, I do not care about these characters. I could not care less what happens to Osha May. Am I going to be like down the future? Oh yeah, Osha May, they're definitely my top 10 Star Wars like characters. Andor, like who is borderline just a random dude from like a planet, is so much more interesting and better than these characters who are created from the Force. This is so boring. Like I'm really glad you're on this podcast with me because at least you're giving like a better context into like a yeah, I know you're not saying you
yeah, yeah,
actually are
yeah.
enjoying it. Like you're giving excitement kind of to what's going to happen, but I'm just here like I really could not care less what happens to them. Like just get it done with so I can be like this show is god awful because it is, and I'm not going to endorse a really poorly written show, one that is utter boring. Like I have never wanted to fall asleep during a Star Wars thing more than this. I thought Bad Batch season 2 and 3 at times were boring as anything, but at least I was still watching them and I was like, I can get through this. These ones I'm struggling to get through a 30-minute live action Star Wars
Mm,
show.
mm,
How is that even possible? You've
yeah.
got like live action Star Wars show. That is like on its own should be enough to keep me awake for like a whole entire episode and a whole season. This is it's pushing my boundaries. It is pushing my boundaries. I'll say that.
I feel like I I'd really like to be able to experience what it's like. I mean, so I really despise The Mandalorian season 3. I really didn't like that, and I've made that clear in the podcast.
It is better than this. I'll give it better than this.
I would like to be in a position where I would like to be in your position where I could see this as horrible. And I know that you like certain aspects, and that's fine. And I just, from my perspective, I don't necessarily find it as horrible as you. And I'm being 100% transparent and honest. And I know people might call me a liar. I'm not. I genuinely think this show has got some really good aspects going
Look,
for it, and it's stuff that
yeah.
I find intriguing. And that's
You're in the minority, which is fair,
yeah, yeah,
but
usually
but
am.
being in the minority is not a bad thing as such. Like obviously, there's going to be people who like it, but I think the reason why you and I have completely different views almost every time is because we grew up in very different, like our experiences with Star Wars has been very
Yeah,
different.
that's what I would
You
say.
literally started with the new era of Star Wars, basically. You know what I
True.
mean? So subconsciously, even if you don't want to admit it or not, you have grown up with the Disney era, probably calling it better than the original ones purely because of your connection to your experiences with it, which is valid. You might not agree with it, but subconsciously, even you with The Last Jedi and stuff, you would like it too because it was one of your earliest films of Star Wars that you've
Yeah,
watched.
that's fair.
Like, same with this. You've always loved the idea of the High Republic and stuff. I love Old Republic more. I still love the High Republic, but I'm not going to excuse it for being, what is happening. I think every decision that they've made with this show has been trash. They could have made this into a movie, even with exactly the same story beats and plot, and it would still be 10 times better project. You know what I mean? Putting this into a show format with this plot, with these characters, with these actors is just not good. It is not good at all.
Mm,
Like, I don't even know how, I'm you could take bits from everything. So that's not saying like a show is good. Every episode of anything or even anything that I've watched ever, even in things that I hate the most, Last Jedi for example, I still take good things from it. There is no project that is utterly just bad from like that's
yeah,
it,
yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yep.
But this is in my opinion closer to being everything being bad than most things being good. And I don't know, like it's hard to like it's hard because
I know.
this show had so much potential. It
Yeah,
literally had freedom of basically anything, yet
yeah,
they're trying to make it the most convoluted. Like the I don't care about Keanu Mundi's age, whatever, but technically they still broke canon with that. Why even have him in the show just to show up and say
yeah.
like stuff like that? Why? Like
I
why?
okay. I feel like his inclusion will be answered in the last two
I
episodes.
don't think it will. I literally just think it's meant to be like, I reckon Leslie Headland and all them thought, oh, we're going to put Kiadi Mundi in here and people are going to see him on screen and go, "Woo." Like, mate,
Ah,
who wants the forehead man? Like, nobody asked for him. And also, this is the only time I'm going to defend the lovers of the show or the opposite of the toxic fandom. Who cared that much about Keanu Mundi until now?
that's
Like,
true.
I'm
That is
sorry,
true.
no one cared about this guy. He was the most like idiotic person in the Jedi Council. Like, his most famous line is, "What about
Yeah,
the droid attack on the Wookiees?"
yeah.
Like, oh brother, this guy stinks. Like, he didn't even believe that the Sith were returning, and now we've got him in this show. Like, he's so garbage. Like, oh,
I don't look. I mean, I just feel like because of I don't know if they focused in on that one line of like, but the Sith have been
for
extinct for a
millennia.
millennia.
Yeah.
I don't know if they literally were like, okay, let's make a show around that single line.
and,
And then
and
they're
put
like,
him
oh
in
no,
it.
we're going to include him. And then right at the end, we're going to go, oh yeah, he saw that. He's just going to shut his mouth and play like he doesn't
Play
know
play
what's going
silly.
on. Yeah.
Oh, it's just like little stuff like that just makes you go like, why were they even thinking this? Like everything that almost happens in this show feels like it's just happening because they need to put something out. This show, in all honesty, feels like the biggest cash grab that they've put out for Star Wars. Because one, it was the
Interesting.
most expensive project. Where is this money going into? Like what we haven't really seen anything that extravagant. We've barely seen the only ship shots that we really get was the one time where it was crashing on the ice planet and just them hovering in space and landing. Like, where is this money coming from? It's not that it's some of the shots are visually nice because they shot some on
Yeah.
location,
Yeah.
but even the costume design of some of them don't even look that great. So I'm like, I don't actually know where all this money got put into this. Like, was there reshoots? Was there struggles for
Maybe.
transportation? Like,
Maybe. You did
what?
say that a couple of the shots were good. I agree. They did shoot on location that was probably a bit more expensive. There was
Mm.
one shot in this episode of Coruscant from the temple that was looking up at it. That was really good. That reminded me of a prequel shot. Like just
Yeah.
even the way it looked, it was a bit darker down at the bottom, obviously because it's um
Mm.
not in the lower levels of Coruscant, but it's on the surface.
It was
Um,
probably definitely the best Coruscant shot we've gotten from the show so
Absolutely. The
far.
rest the
Because
rest
the other
looked
ones
a bit
are,
like under no, not undersaturated. Yeah, undersaturated.
it's very neutral tones. Like
Yeah.
everything looks whitewashed almost. I'm like, ugh.
There's
And
nothing
like
special about
underdeveloped.
it.
Yeah, I was like, ugh. I was like, I don't
Imagine,
like this.
imagine if we got a shot of the Jedi Temple and it was like glistening. I don't think
Mm,
that would go that far, but
yeah.
I feel like that would be
I don't
a
know.
bit
We
more
haven't really even
interesting.
gotten much shots of like even if you think of Revenge of the Sith and stuff. We get like outside shots, even Clone Wars where Ahsoka left Anakin. Like we got like other shots of the temple. These ones are always looking up at the temple and then just Venestra in a room. It's
Yeah.
literally every time Venestra's in a room and there's a hologram on the table. It's like the same shots every time and the same dialogue just written differently, and them still not telling the audiences and each other what's actually happened until the end. And they're expecting us viewers to be like, oh, wow, the
Yeah.
Jedi killed the witches? Wow. Like, brother, just give it
Yeah.
up, man.
Well, I
Like,
mean,
oh,
I don't know if they went into the show thinking that I think they probably made it a bit too obvious, and
mm,
by the time it came around to like editing and stuff, they were like, "Oh no, we made it too obvious," and then they
mm.
couldn't really do anything about it.
I don't
Um,
know. It's just, it's this episode just felt like it could have been like an episode 1, 2 feel to it where it progressed the storyline, also had some really cool scenes that kept you engaged with the bad dialogue, and but like this one here just felt like it went back to episode 3 and 4 where it didn't really do much. It's still lingering and teasing, making you come to the next week to watch it to actually get the full reveal. And it's like, oh, we're not really going to tell you anything. Here's some random shots of just Kamir. Here's some random shots of Osha looking at this. Here's a random shot of Basil fixing Pip. Like, this a lot of nothing. This
mm,
episode was a lot of nothing at all. You know what I mean? And I'm like, why would you do this straight after one of the best action episodes of Star Wars? I don't
yeah.
get it. Like, make it interesting plot wise at least. I
Well,
don't know.
so I want to just quickly mention Soul,
Mm.
if that's all right.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, because I was very confused by what his character was actually going through this episode. I know there was one moment in the ship when he was kind of looking at a screen and he
Yeah.
was like really upset, and then he stopped for maybe like 10 seconds and he was
Mm-hmm.
just staring like without blinking or anything. And then he kind of like came back to reality. I don't know if
Yeah.
that was a moment of realization for him, but what happened with him in this episode was really strange. So
Mm.
first of all, can we just please discuss the fact that he was not able to tell, at least from what I
I think
know.
he did. I think he did.
You reckon from the beginning that he knew?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. He
Okay.
was
All
just
right.
waiting.
I
I reckon he was just
retract
what
my
I reckon he was just I re- I understand where you're coming from. I reckon he was just waiting for May to actually do something aggressive. I think he was probably waiting more for May to come out and be open about it. Maybe he was hoping that she'd be honest or trying to find what her true intentions were until she was ready to taser him. And it's like, well, no,
maybe.
like,
Okay, all right. Well, regardless, still what happened is that he called a rescue team.
mm,
Obviously, there was trouble with the communication, which there always is, classic Star Wars trope.
yeah, literally.
And then Vanestra, I don't know if he expected them to come or not. He probably did still expect them to come.
Mm,
But then he straps May to a bed
yeah, that's
after
pretty weird.
stunning her and says,
Yeah.
"You are going to listen to me because I've been thinking for 16 years about what to say," and then leaves.
Yeah, no, it's pretty weird.
He
Yeah.
doesn't stay there. I feel like it just makes the case worse for him because I know he's going to get accused by the Jedi, but it's like he's just making it so bad. Why would you think, "Oh, let's get away"? First of all, where are they even going? But it's like
Yeah.
you just make it look like you've murdered
You're
it. You've hit and
suspicious.
run. You've done a hit and run.
Yeah. You literally.
I don't understand what the intention was there. Like just wait around. Use your brain. Use your
I
brain,
think
Master Soul.
they could have easily he could have easily just explained that we fought a Jedi, an evil Jedi or something, and here's someone for proof, and you could check the whatever, and I'll show you and prove to you, but nah,
Yep.
nothing at all. Like,
I did not understand it, and it's just it's like the character motivation switch in episode 4 for May, which I know
mm,
she kind of went back on, but it was like when she's like, "Oh no, it's too difficult, it's impossible. I'm just gonna hand myself over to the Jedi." It was like
yeah.
that for me. It was like he knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to get out there. He's like, "I'm ready to confess to the High Council about everything I've done." And then, at least in this like situation, he had that moment of like he was thinking it over, but
Mm.
still, just a complete 180 because now
But
he's running
yeah,
away.
that's why I'm saying if you're going with the sense that OSHA, is turned like tuning in a little bit to the dark side, I'm like, well, once again 180 because I feel like Osha's been the only character in the show to like really, no matter what, believe that the Jedi are good, even with all this stuff telling them that they're not, kind of thing. You know what I mean? And maybe she might still do that even after putting the
Okay.
helmet on. She might break the seducing or whatever. You know what I mean?
I
Like I
guess
don't
I
know.
guess we're kind of circling back. It's poetry. It's like poetry. It rhymes.
It
We're
rhymes.
doing a full circle. And this will probably be the last thing that I mention. But it's
Yeah.
like I liken, and as much as you probably won't like to hear this, I liken May and Osha and Kamir's kind of budding friendship to Rey and Kylo
It's
Ren
it's
in The Last
Raylo.
Jedi.
They're
It's
they're gonna
Reylo.
kiss.
Well,
They are.
I don't think so, but I think that because Ray, she was ready to work with Ben. Obviously, she was. I don't know if she was ready to embrace the dark side, but they found the common ground, and that's what's happening with Osha and Camille.
How did that go with the reception of the sequel movies?
Yeah, yeah, horrible. But I
Yeah,
mean,
exactly. And they're like, let's repeat this times two, elevate that, let's go. Like, yeah, we're gonna full steam ahead on this. So what everyone hated about the sequels, let's just, whoa, good job, Disney. Well done. We love you.
wouldn't it be hilarious if they were like, okay, let's make a show that's trying to piss off as many people as possible.
They've
What's
done a good
things
rate.
that pissed off people in Star
Yeah.
Wars? Oh yeah, Raylo, that was a thing.
Yeah, that was a thing. Let's put that in. Nah, honestly, I think that's my overall thoughts of the
Yeah.
episode as a whole. I think it was just a very nothing episode, and that's the best description.
Yeah.
Nothing, nothing at all.
What was a bigger nothing episode, this or episode four?
This because at least episode 4, what's it called? The ending led to something bigger after, where I feel like this ending still just nothing again, just nothing.
Oh, speaking of the ending, I got faked out again on the black screen. I thought
Oh, before the
after
helmet shot.
before the helmet, I'm like, no
Yeah,
way. That's what they're
yeah,
ending it with.
yeah.
And I'm like, bro, this is worse than the other black shot ending that they did in episode two
Literally.
or episode three. I think it was episode three. And then yeah, I got faked out again. I gotta stop falling for it.
Yeah, no, it's,
I
they
gotta
always do the
wait. I
double.
gotta wait for the credits to show off on the screen.
But they
Yeah.
always do it like they always cut like instantly. It's not
Yeah.
like when it holds black for a while. No, it's going to something else. It's when they like quickly do a, and
Yeah, it's quickly, yeah.
then it's like, oh, it's done.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all
Yeah.
from me. Unless you got anything a little bit more to add.
I'm pretty much done. I only had 4 points that I wanted to discuss, and I got to talk about all of them. So
Jeez, 4 points
I had
only
to do
from
that.
one
Also,
episode.
I'll say one more thing just before we finish
Yeah,
up.
go for it.
I don't understand these titles. Like
It's
this
gone
one
back
was
to the.
back to the slash.
Oh,
It was a cool title, Teach Corrupt. That was cool. But
yeah,
it's like, what?
yeah, I
Like
know.
3 episodes in a row you haven't had it. I'm assuming since 4 and 5 were supposed to be combined, it was meant to be day night. But
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't
so
know.
weird.
It is
Very
weird.
weird.
Yeah. Weird show.
Weird. Very weird show indeed.
Yeah. All right. That'll do us for episode 6 of The Acolyte. And we'll see you next week for episode 7. See you guys.
There.